Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say something that might rattle a few cages, and that's exactly why it needs to be said. Don't trust a crying woman or a laughing man. Now before you twist that in your head, hear me out. This is not about hating on emotion. It's not about being cold or judgmental. It's about waking up to reality. It's about not getting played by a performance. Because guess what? In a world where people wear masks every single day, some cry to manipulate and some laugh to deceive. We've been taught since childhood to respond to people's emotions before we respond to their actions. But that's backwards. If someone is crying in front of you, what do? You feel sympathy. You start making excuses for them. If someone is laughing and joking, you let your guard down. You assume they're harmless. You trust them. But what if that crying woman is using her tears as a weapon to shift blame? What if that laughing man is hiding something behind that grin? You need to understand this: emotions are powerful tools, and people who don't want to be accountable, people who thrive on manipulation, they know exactly how to use emotions to get what they want. A crying woman isn't always a victim. Sometimes she's a master manipulator and a laughing man. Sometimes he's the most dangerous one in the room because he knows that humor can disarm you. You stop asking questions. You let things slide. You assume he's got it all under control. Stop judging situations based on how people feel in the moment and start judging them based on what they do over time. Let me be very clear. I am not saying don't feel empathy. I'm saying don't let empathy blind you to the truth. There's a difference between feeling for someone and letting that feeling override your logic, your boundaries, your gut. Think about your own life. How many times have you been tripped by someone crying during a confrontation? How many times have you let someone off the hook because they were just charming and made you laugh? And how many times did that come back to bite you? That crying woman might be the one who lied to you. That laughing man might be the one who stabbed you in the back. People don't always reveal themselves in moments of raw emotion. They reveal themselves in patterns. Patterns of truth, patterns of behavior. That's where trust is earned. If someone's words and emotions don't match their actions, you need to wake up. You need to stop giving people passes just because their emotions made you uncomfortable. We live in a time where emotional manipulation is normalized, and people who are highly emotional are often the ones driving the narrative. But listen, intensity is not truth. Drama is not depth. Tears aren't always sincere. And smiles can be masks. You've got to develop emotional intelligence. That means reading between the lines, not just reacting to what's on the surface. Learn to pause, learn to assess. Learn to say, hold up, this person is emotional right now, but what have they actually done to deserve my trust? Because trust isn't about emotion, it's about consistency. It's about whether someone shows up when it matters. It's about whether their actions align with their values, not whether they cry in public or tell a great joke. You've got to stop being the person who always gives the benefit of the doubt just because someone's emotional. That's how you get taken advantage of. That's how you get trapped in cycles with people who drain you, gaslight you, and leave you wondering what just happened. There's power in empathy, yes, but there's even more power in discernment. And discernment means knowing when someone's emotions are real and when they're being used as tools to cover up guilt, control the room, or escape consequences. It's okay to be compassionate, but don't be naive. It's okay to support people, but don't sacrifice your clarity in the process. Don't trust a crying woman just because she's crying. Don't trust a laughing man just because he's laughing. Look at what they do. Look at what they've done. Trust the pattern, not the performance. And more than anything, trust yourself. Your gut knows. Your intuition knows when something is off. Stop gaslighting yourself. Stop explaining away red flags just because the package looked emotional or entertaining. This is your wake-up call. Stop letting feelings lead you into dysfunction. Stop letting emotions override your boundaries. Start demanding consistency. Start protecting your peace. And never forget, the people who deserve your trust are the ones who don't need to cry or joke their way into it. They earn it daily. Now go out there and stop mistaking emotion for truth because your future depends on it. When it comes to human behavior, one of the biggest mistakes we make is thinking that emotions are always honest. Just because someone is crying doesn't mean they're telling the truth. Just because someone is laughing doesn't mean they're harmless. We're conditioned to react to these emotions automatically, as if they are proof of sincerity. But that conditioning, it can set you up to be manipulated, used, and blindsided, especially by people who have learned how to weaponize emotion. Let's talk about crying. Crying is powerful. It disarms people. It signals vulnerability, but vulnerability and honesty aren't always the same thing. Someone can cry as a way to avoid accountability. They might cry because they're caught, not because they're sorry. You've probably experienced this, maybe during a fight, maybe during a tough conversation, and the second tears appear, everything shifts. You start to feel guilty. You start to doubt yourself. That's exactly what manipulative people count on. They know if they show you enough emotion, you'll back down. You'll question your reality. You'll stop pushing for the truth. People who cry in the middle of confrontation often do it to flip the script. Instead of staying focused on their behavior or the facts, now the conversation becomes about how they feel. And if you're not careful, you'll fall right into it. You'll stop setting boundaries and start comforting them. That's how you lose power in the moment. That's how manipulation takes root. Now let's flip it to the other side. Laughter. On the surface, it seems harmless, right? We trust people who make us laugh. We assume they're lighthearted, approachable fun. But humor can be a smokescreen. Some people laugh not because they're genuinely joyful, but because it keeps people from asking deeper questions. It makes them seem non-threatening, even when they're hiding something serious. It's a defense mechanism, and for some, it's a well-practiced one. You ever meet someone who jokes constantly but never opens up, or someone who laughs things off when they're confronted with something serious? That's not charm, that's a tactic. It's how they avoid vulnerability. It's how they make you second. Guess your instincts. They make you feel like the one overreacting, like you're too intense, too serious. And all the while, you're letting real red flags slide because the tone is friendly. Let me make something really clear. Being emotional is not a problem. The issue is when emotion becomes a mask, when it's used to manipulate, to confuse, to evade the truth. That's when you've got to pay attention. That's when you stop reacting and start observing. Here's what I want you to do the next time someone cries or laughs in a high-stakes situation. Pause. Don't immediately move into comfort mode. Don't immediately assume sincerity. Ask yourself, what's the pattern here? How do they normally behave? What's their track record? Because trust doesn't come from how someone behaves in one emotional moment. Trust is built in the repetition of consistent, respectful behavior over time. You have to give yourself permission to be both compassionate and discerning. It's not cruel to question emotion, it's wise. Because people with the worst intentions often come dressed in the most emotional packaging. Think about scammers, abusers, manipulators. They're not walking around looking scary. They're charming. They're charismatic. They know how to perform. They know how to cry on cue or joke to deflect. That's what makes them dangerous. So stop confusing emotion with character. Someone can be emotionally expressive and still be emotionally dishonest. Someone can be emotionally reserved and still be deeply trustworthy. What matters is not the intensity of the emotion. It's the integrity behind the action. I want you to remember that every time you're in a conversation where emotions take center stage, your job is not to fix the feeling. Your job is to stay grounded in the facts. Your job is to keep your feet planted in truth. Ask yourself, what is this person doing consistently? How do they treat others? How do they respond when they're challenged and they can't use emotion to dodge accountability? Trust is not about who can cry or who can charm. Trust is about who can show up when things are hard. It's about who takes responsibility without needing a stage. It's about who respects your boundaries without turning the tables. Emotion should be a signal, not a verdict, and just because someone is showing strong emotion doesn't mean they're showing you the truth. So don't trust a crying woman just because she cries. Don't trust a laughing man just because he smiles. Trust the patterns, trust the consistency, trust what they do not what they feel in one moment, and most of all, trust yourself. You're allowed to pause, you're allowed to assess, you're allowed to protect your peace even when someone else is emotional. Because your peace matters more than someone else's performance, always. We live in a world where emotional manipulation hides in plain sight. It's subtle, sometimes so well disguised it feels like sincerity. People have become experts at using emotions, especially powerful ones like tears and laughter, to shape outcomes, avoid accountability, and gain control over situations. And if you don't recognize the signs, you'll find yourself constantly caught in emotional traps that leave you confused, depleted, and doubting your own instincts. It starts when you mistake performance for vulnerability. Crying is a natural expression of sadness or distress, yes, but it's also a powerful tool for diversion. When someone cries, it triggers an empathetic response. That's human. But when those tears show up the exact moment they're being held accountable, or when they're called out for harmful behavior, you have to pause and ask yourself, is this person experiencing deep regret, or are they trying to shift the attention away from the truth? Emotional manipulation uses your own compassion against you. It turns your empathy into weakness. A crying person can immediately flip the emotional power in a room. 1 second, you're calmly explaining how you were hurt, and the next, you're comforting the person who hurt you. You lose your voice in the process, and the worst part, that person walks away feeling justified because they didn't apologize, they didn't take accountability, they just made you feel bad for making them feel bad. Now let's look at the opposite, laughter. On the surface, it seems lighthearted, even healthy, but sometimes laughter is a smokescreen. It's used to downplay serious topics, to deflect, to keep you off balance. A man who's constantly cracking jokes when things get uncomfortable isn't always fun. Sometimes he's hiding. Sometimes that laughter is armor. It makes him hard to confront because you don't want to ruin the mood or take things too seriously. But underneath that charm could be avoidance, manipulation, or even cruelty masked in humor. You've likely experienced this too. Someone jokes after they've hurt you. They laugh about your reaction. Maybe they say something like, "You're too sensitive," or "Can't you take a joke?" And suddenly, you're the problem, not them, not the inappropriate comment, not the boundary they just crossed. No, the problem is that you didn't laugh, that you didn't play along, that you expected real accountability instead of entertainment. This tactic is dangerous because it plays on your social conditioning. You've been taught to be nice, to forgive quickly, to make peace, to not overreact. So when someone uses tears or laughter strategically, it confuses you. You think, they can't be doing this on purpose. They're crying, or they're just trying to lighten the mood. But the truth is, some people are very aware of what they're doing. And others, they've been using emotional manipulation for so long they don't even realize it's manipulation anymore. It's just how they survive. It's how they get their way. The key to protecting yourself is not to become cold or emotionless. It's to become discerning. You have to develop emotional boundaries. Boundaries that say, "I see you're upset, but that doesn't change what needs to be addressed." Boundaries that say, "I hear you laughing, but I still need to talk about this seriously." That kind of boundary requires strength. It requires you to be uncomfortable, but that discomfort is how you reclaim your power. There's a difference between someone expressing emotion and someone asterisk using asterisk emotion. The difference is in intention. A person expressing real sadness or vulnerability won't make you feel guilty for holding them accountable. They'll still own their behavior. They won't shift the blame. And someone who laughs because they're truly lighthearted will also know when to get serious, when to respect the gravity of a situation. They'll stop and say, "You're right, let's talk about this." But manipulators, they rely on the fact that most people don't know how to confront emotion, that most people retreat the second things get intense, that most people would rather keep the peace than risk conflict, and that's where they win. You need to train yourself to stay grounded when emotion enters the room. Pause, observe, ask yourself, asterisk, what is this person avoiding by crying right now? Asterisk or asterisk, why are they laughing instead of answering the question? Asterisk, don't immediately react. Don't immediately comfort. Give yourself space to process. Because if you don't, you will constantly find yourself walking away from conversations where you did all the emotional labor while the other person walked away unscathed. This is especially important in close relationships, romantic, family, professional. When you care about someone, you're even more vulnerable to emotional manipulation. You want to believe the best. You want to assume sincerity. But sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who use our compassion the most. Not out of malice necessarily, but out of habit, out of learned behavior, out of fear of facing the consequences of their actions. So here's what I want you to remember. Emotions are valid, but they are not always honest. And they are certainly not always innocent. Your job is not to police anyone's feelings, but it asterisk is asterisk to protect yourself from being emotionally played. Trust patterns over performances. Trust consistency over charisma. Trust your gut over guilt, because when you can look past the tears, when you can see behind the smiles, when you can stay grounded no matter how emotional things get asterisk, that's when you become unshakable asterisk. We all want to believe that people show us their true selves. That what you see is what you get, but here's the uncomfortable truth. People show you what they want you to see, and often, what they want you to see is exactly what you're most likely to fall for. We're hardwired to respond to emotional cues. We see someone laughing and assume they're happy, easygoing, trustworthy. We see someone crying and assume they're honest, overwhelmed, or in need of comfort. But real intentions, those run much deeper, and most of the time, they're not found in the emotion, they're revealed in the pattern. Manipulators, whether conscious or not, are master illusionists. They create a version of themselves designed to keep you close, keep you invested, keep you guessing, and they know how to time emotion perfectly. Ever notice how certain people only get emotional when they are about to be held accountable? Or how others crack a joke right at the moment a conversation starts to get uncomfortable? That's not coincidence. That's a defense, a strategy, because emotion, when used right, buys time, sympathy, and often your silence. So what do we do? How do we stay clear? Headed when someone's crying or when someone's charming us into letting things slide? The first step is this: separate emotion from evidence. Someone's ability to show emotion does not equal proof of sincerity. Think about the last time someone wronged you, then cried when you confronted them. Did they change their behavior afterward, or did they just cry, wait for you to feel bad, and then carry on like nothing happened? That moment right, there is the difference between emotional manipulation and emotional growth. You have to start paying attention to what happens asterisk after asterisk the emotion. Does the crying person take accountability, make amends, adjust their behavior, or do they expect the emotional display to be the resolution? Do they think their feelings cancel out the impact of their actions? That's the trap. You're made to feel like because they cried, you owe them something. Your forgiveness, your trust, a second chance. But no one is entitled to those things just because they got emotional. They're earned through consistent behavior. Let's talk about the charming ones now, the ones who laugh and smile their way out of every confrontation. They're funny, right, disarming, maybe even magnetic. But when laughter becomes a shield, a way to deflect every serious issue, that's when you need to take a step back. Because if someone can't have a real conversation without making it a performance, they're not showing you their true self. They're keeping you at arm's length. And people who laugh in the face of serious issues are often telling you, I don't take your concerns seriously. You deserve real conversations. You deserve to express how you feel without being laughed at or emotionally overpowered. And if you're dealing with someone who uses emotional theatrics to avoid truth, you're not in a relationship, you're in a performance. A one-sided one where you're the only person working toward clarity while the other keeps pulling the curtain shut. Here's the hard part. Recognizing emotional manipulation means being willing to disappoint people. It means not giving in to every tear, not laughing along when you're actually hurting, not comforting someone who hasn't taken responsibility, and that's not cold-hearted, that's clarity. You're not rejecting emotion, you're refusing to be ruled by it. Watch people's actions. Do they follow through? Do they change? Do they respect your boundaries even when you're not watching? Because that's the real measure of character, not how emotional they get when they're cornered, but how accountable they are when they're calm. Not how entertaining they are in the moment, but how consistent they are over time. You have to become a pattern analyst, not an emotional responder. Stop focusing on the episode and start studying the season. One emotional moment can lie, but patterns don't. They reveal. They expose the truth people try to hide behind tears and laughter. And if you keep ignoring the patterns, you'll keep repeating the pain. Every time you excuse someone's behavior because of how emotional they got, you reinforce their power over you. You teach them that performance works, and they'll keep doing it because it gets results. But the moment you stop rewarding emotional manipulation with your silence, your forgiveness, your attention, that's when the dynamic shifts. That's when you reclaim control. Don't be afraid to ask yourself the hard questions. Why do I feel guilty when they cry? Why do I hesitate to confront them when they laugh? What am I really responding to? Their emotion or my fear of losing the relationship? You have to go there. You have to be honest. Because until you do, you'll keep getting played by people who are better at managing your feelings than managing their own actions. Empathy is a strength, but empathy without boundaries, that's exploitation. You are allowed to care deeply and still protect yourself. You are allowed to feel compassion and still say no. You are allowed to love people and not let them walk all over you with their emotions. So don't trust a crying woman or a laughing man simply because they're expressive. Trust the quiet moments when no one's watching. Trust the decisions they make when no emotions are involved. Trust your intuition when it says something doesn't add up, because more often than not, it's right. And most of all, trust yourself. You're not cold for needing facts. You're not mean for needing accountability. You're not broken for not buying into emotional theatrics. You're just aware, and awareness, that's the beginning of freedom. When someone shows you their patterns, believe them. Not once, not when it's convenient, not when it suits your hopes, but every single time. Patterns don't lie. They are the clearest, loudest, most consistent indicators of someone's true character. The problem is, too many of us fall in love with potential instead of patterns. We get swept up in what someone could be, in how they act when they're trying, and we ignore the countless times they've already shown us who they are on autopilot. Here's the deal. Anyone can behave well for a moment. Anyone can apologize. Anyone can make a big gesture or say the right words, but none of that means anything without consistency. And the most dangerous trap you'll fall into is believing that a temporary change is a permanent transformation. It's not. People revert to their patterns like a thermostat resets to a default. What you see consistently is who they are. What you see occasionally is who they pretend to be when they need something. Let's break this down. Say you're in a relationship with someone who constantly avoids responsibility. Every time you bring up an issue, they get defensive, they blame others, they deflect. But then, when the pressure builds up and you threaten to walk away, they cry. They say they're sorry, they make promises, they do something sweet, and for a moment everything feels better. But what happens after the storm clears? They go right back to the same avoidance, the same denial, the same cycle. That's not a glitch, that's the program running exactly how it was designed. If someone's pattern is avoidance, don't get tricked by temporary accountability. If someone's pattern is manipulation, don't fall for the one-off moment of vulnerability. Patterns always tell the truth. That's why you need to zoom out. Stop looking at the one moment they got it right. Look at the last 6 months, the last year. What do the actions say over time? If you ignore the pattern, you'll repeat the pain. And this doesn't just apply to relationships. It applies to work, to friends, to family. Think about that coworker who always misses deadlines. Sure, they had a great month once, but over the last year, they've shown you exactly how unreliable they are. Or that friend who always promises to be there for you, but never follows through. Until you call them out. Then they show up once, and you forgive everything. But then, back to the same distance, the same excuses. That's not bad luck. That's a pattern. You want to stop being disappointed. Then stop pretending the exception is the rule. Stop betting your emotional security on potential instead of proof. There's nothing more draining than trying to build a future with someone who refuses to show up in the present. And you don't owe it to anyone to keep ignoring reality just because you wish it were different. The truth is, believing in someone's potential over their pattern is often about us, not them. It's about our own desire to fix, to heal, to be enough that they'll change for us. But here's what you need to understand. People don't change for you. They change for themselves. And if they haven't made the decision to change at their core, they won't. Not permanently. You can inspire someone, but you cannot carry them across the finish line. They have to want it. They have to own it. They have to do it. So how do you get clarity? Start documenting patterns in your own mind. What do you see them doing consistently? How do they handle stress, conflict, pressure, success? What do they default to when things get hard? That's who they really are. And more importantly, what's your pattern? Are you the one always giving second chances, always making excuses, always hoping someone becomes who they've never consistently been? Your peace will arrive the moment you stop arguing with reality. When you finally look at someone and say, "This is who they are, they've shown me enough times," that clarity might be painful, but it's liberating. Because now, you're no longer a prisoner of false hope. Now, you can make decisions based on truth, not fantasy. You deserve relationships built on trust, on growth, on mutual effort, not just apologies and promises. Not just charm and charisma. You deserve consistency, reliability, honesty, and if someone can't give you that, not just once, but over time, you need to believe what their pattern is screaming, even if their words are whispering something sweeter. This kind of awareness takes courage because it forces you to let go of the story you've been telling yourself, the one where they finally change, where things get better, where your effort pays off. But that story is costing you too much. It's costing you your energy, your confidence, your time. You don't have to hate anyone to walk away. You don't have to fight. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to see the pattern, believe it, and act accordingly. Because the most powerful form of self-respect is trusting your own ability to observe, discern, and decide. Start honoring the patterns. In them lies the truth you've been searching for, and once you do that, you'll stop chasing clarity from people who have already shown you who they are, and start creating peace by standing in your own. When you begin to value peace over presence, your entire perspective shifts. There comes a moment when you stop prioritizing who stays in your life and start focusing on how you feel in their presence. That shift is the beginning of real power because not everyone who's present is bringing peace, and not everyone who's absent is leaving a void. Some people walk into your life like a storm, and your ability to silence that storm by letting go, not fighting, not fixing, just letting go, is what defines your growth. We're taught to hold on. We're told that loyalty is sticking it out, no matter the cost. But here's the truth no one tells you. Loyalty to others means nothing if it comes at the cost of betrayal to yourself. If someone constantly triggers your anxiety, if you feel drained every time you talk to them, if you're constantly walking on eggshells or defending your worth, what are you really holding on to? A relationship? Or a rope that's burning your hands? There's a dangerous narrative that says we have to keep the peace by avoiding conflict. But keeping the peace with others while you're at war with yourself isn't peace. It's silence, it's suppression, and that's not noble. That's self-abandonment. Choosing your peace might make people uncomfortable. It might get you labeled selfish, cold, or distant. But you know what? That discomfort is temporary. The kind of discomfort that comes from constantly betraying yourself to accommodate others. That sticks, that hardens, that rots from the inside out. You don't need a huge reason to protect your peace. You don't need someone to hurt you in a big, dramatic way to walk away. Sometimes it's just a slow erosion. Sometimes it's subtle disrespect, a pattern of disregard, or the quiet exhaustion of trying to be understood by someone who is committed to misunderstanding you. That's enough. That's valid. That's reason to choose peace. Protecting your peace doesn't mean you hate them. It doesn't mean you think you're better than them. It means you love yourself enough to stop accepting chaos as a normal state of being. It means you've outgrown the need for validation and drama. It means you understand that peace is not a luxury. It's a necessity for clear thinking, for emotional regulation, for actual happiness. And let's talk about what protecting your peace really looks like in practice. It's saying no without guilt. It's not responding to texts that bait you into an argument. It's blocking numbers, muting notifications, declining invitations that feel like obligations. It's removing yourself from circles where gossip is the currency and insecurity is the norm. It's choosing solitude over toxicity, not because you're antisocial, but because you're finally tuned into your own energy. It also looks like boundaries, clear, unapologetic boundaries, not ones you constantly explain or defend, but ones you implement. Because people who benefit from your lack of boundaries will always call your peace distance. Let them. People who lose access to your energy after mishandling it will always frame your peace as ego. Let them. Let people misunderstand you. Let them paint their version of the story because their perception isn't your responsibility. Your peace is. You don't have to explain why you're stepping back. You don't owe anyone a speech. Sometimes your peace speaks louder in your absence than your presence ever could. Sometimes your silence is the most powerful message you'll ever send. It says, I'm done explaining why I deserve peace. I'm just going to live in it, and once you get a taste of that peace, the kind where you wake up without dread, where your space feels safe, where your mind is quiet, you won't want to give it up. You'll be more discerning. You'll realize that peace isn't just about removing negativity, it's also about being intentional with what you let in. You won't chase closure anymore. You won't chase apologies or understanding. You'll realize some things don't need to be fixed. They just need to be released. Letting go doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you cared enough to stop fighting a losing battle. It means you finally put yourself on your own priority list. It means you understand that you are not responsible for healing others at the expense of harming yourself. And that's not weakness, that's wisdom. You deserve relationships that feel like calm, not chaos. Conversations that bring clarity, not confusion. Love that feels like safety, not survival. And if someone can't meet you there, if their presence brings more anxiety than peace, then it's not your job to adjust to their storm. It's your job to protect your atmosphere. You're not difficult, you're not cold, you're not heartless for choosing peace, you're awake, you're aware. And you're finally done sacrificing your mental well-being for the sake of keeping connections that never truly respected your boundaries in the first place. So protect your peace unapologetically. Build a life that feels good on the inside, not just one that looks good on the outside. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who has to live with your energy, your mind, your space. Make it peaceful, make it sacred, and never let anyone convince you that chaos is the price you have to pay to be loved, included, or understood. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to protect your peace and watch how everything else aligns.